Welcome to Victoria Rumble Room, an island show that likes to kick down the door and boot the tires and see what's going on in British Columbia, Canada, the wide world. I'm Robin Adair, and I'm just back from a London getaway. I was out in the London, UK area, and just a quick little break. Great to be back, of course, in London and the UK in general. It was nice weather, but the prices are high. And the weather was fine, but it's really good to be home, and great to be back with my co-host with the most, John Jurisic.
Robin, great to have you back. So exciting to have a European trip like that, and clearly a whirlwind trip. Lots of shows, lots of attractions. I'm curious. Our viewers are curious. Are close to now 1.3 million of them. What are people talking about in the UK? What are the common news items and stuff? What are they doing?
The interesting thing is a lot of the people in the UK are talking about the same things we're talking about. They're fascinated by some of the things that grab attention on this side of the water. For example, they're very worried about the cost of housing. It's sky high. Their fuel prices are way higher than ours. They're very concerned also, of course, about that nearby war in Ukraine. And there's always talk about the pending trial of Donald Trump. Papers are full of stories and opinions about all those various topics that we keep talking about around the water cooler. And judging from letters to the editor, there's still lots of support for Ukraine in Great Britain and lots of hatred for Donald Trump. And hey, that sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, it sure does. It would be great off the cuff here to have a Ukraine show. We're likely need an update. I mean, especially when Evgeny Prigozhin's plane predictably crashed. I mean, what were the ways? Poison, pushing out of a hotel. Oh, now we have plane crash. So not long after his attempted coup, his plane crashes. We reached out to our pal Andrew Weaver for comment. Of course, Dr. Weaver remains a professor and climate expert, global climate expert at UVic, but not long ago he was the leader of the BC Green Party. So you'd better believe that Andrew knows a thing or two about the cut and thrust of politics. So we asked him about the pending Donald Trump trial and for his reaction to the way they solve, apparently, political problems in Russia.
Well, my first thought is I was surprised he didn't fall out of a window. A plane crashing seems a little bit extreme, but I'm just glad I wasn't a politician in Russia. I mean, this is what happens in Russia. You don't like the government, you don't live very long afterwards. And Mr. Prigozhin, who he basically incited a revolt, was apparently pardoned. But then magically and mysteriously, his plane went down. And it's tragic for the others who were on the plane with him.
And it seems like there's so much show business right now going on in politics. We have that drama, and now we're likely going to have Donald Trump on international television for a trial. It's going to be Watergate all over again.
And his orange skin and ridiculous haircut. CNN's happy because it literally, Donald Trump is making CNN stay solvent. They're 24/7 news. It's captivating every time he breathes. You've got coverage. But for the rest of the world, for heaven's sake, can we move on from Donald Trump? The guy is a megalomaniac, a narcissistic sociopath, in my view. Just why are we talking about him? And see, I'm having an unknown caller going now. Maybe it's Donald Trump. Oh, no, it's not.
Oh, boy, you've got to laugh. Or conversely, got to cry in despair at these terrible stories and terrible men. Mind you, I've met people who actually admire Donald Trump. Not many, I might add, and I haven't talked to them for long, but they don't think Canada has any business getting involved in Ukraine. Such is life in a democracy. We pride ourselves on this show for showing both sides, don't we?
Well, we try, John, and looking forward to that televised debate with Donald Trump that's going to originate in Atlanta, Georgia. It's going to be a huge TV event, probably one of the biggest political TV events to take place since the Watergate hearings back in the 1970s, and those brought down Richard Nixon. So, could this be the downfall of Donald Trump at last? At last, we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, what's up next, John?
Yeah, just before I get to that, literally every 3 months, there's been some kind of funeral for Donald Trump. That this is the event that's going to close him down. I don't think any of this will close him down. I don't know what's going to happen in the U.S. Nonetheless, we do get a lot of reaction to what we say and what is happening. And we've got lots of viewer mail on the interviews we've done over the last few weeks on the need for more housing and the rapid growth of population in BC in general, and southern Vancouver Island in particular. Apparently a lot of people, at least from our comments, want things to slow down.
Absolutely, John. And one Facebook group that we regularly send our stories to is Politics and More in BC and across Canada. And through that group site, our partner group site, we received a response from Les regarding our stories on rapid growth, high prices, and the lack of doctors. And Les writes, when we are going to point the finger at the reason why we have a housing and healthcare crisis, it's called immigration. And he goes on to say, you can't force tens of thousands of new people into a country without the facilities to support them, while at the same time making progress a thing of the past. And Justin Trudeau is talking about bringing in 500,000 immigrants a year to Canada. And if you look at our population and the way it's aging so rapidly, we do need more workers. But perhaps the question is degree. How quickly and how rapidly we bring these people into the country, because integration is really a challenge. More debate on this ahead, but what else do we have, John, in our magic box for this show?
Well, I'm looking into it, and it's overflowing. But we're going to shift topics and talk about natural gas. I mean, just another huge political issue, environmental issue. And we're going to talk about a new technology, which may very well transform natural gas into a green source of energy. Isn't that exciting? Fred Haynes, the former mayor of Saanich, has got himself involved in a project that could revolutionize our natural gas industry right out of Victoria. Fred is standing by. Let's zoom him in.
Now joining us in the Victoria Rumble Room for the first time this year is the former mayor of Saanich and now the vice president of stakeholder relations for the groundbreaking company in Canada, Cielo Solutions. Welcome back, Fred.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, John. And welcome to all the listeners of the great Rumble Room for Victoria.
Yeah, we love the plug. We love the plug. Let me say, first of all, on the surface, from what I've already read and heard from you in an earlier chat, this is very exciting stuff. If this all works your way, conceivably, this could be a sea change in history, Fred. And basically, Cielo has developed a type of converter that, in the most simple of terms, captures the carbon in natural gas emissions and makes this fuel completely carbon neutral, thus turning gas into green energy. Have I got it right?
You got it right, except what we've done, the technology was developed by a New York company called Carbon Quest, and we are the Canadian channel partner for the delivery of this technology across Canada. And we signed up the agreement in May, middle of May. So we've had 4 months running at it. Stan Sipos is the CEO, and John Sipos is our president, and our bios are up on the website. And I have to say, it's very exciting. The way you described it is pretty good. And people could think of it like a catalyst, a catalytic converter, where you take the fuel from an engine of an automobile, and you have catalysts in there that take out the bad stuff and let the engine continue to perform. So the Cielo Carbon Solutions technology out of Carbon Quest lets us intercept the emissions from natural gas boilers or cogen systems, take out the carbon, and then liquefy that carbon through a temperature swing, pressure swing absorbent process, which is so safe it's being used in residential buildings in New York. We'll get into that. It takes out the carbon, converts it to liquid, and then that can be sequestered into carbon cured concrete. It can go into these new carbon plastics, or in the long run, we hope it will be used in the recycled CO2 market, including taking this liquid CO2 and using it in sustainable aviation fuels. This is a whole paradigm shift. It's a historic paradigm shift of how we can turn natural gas and take out the CO2, which is valuable as a commodity. People don't know that there's 10 million tons and 5 million tons of manufactured CO2 used in Canada right now in food and beverage, in carbon cured concrete, in industrial processes, in medical processes when you go for surgery.
That is fantastic. That's fantastic. Amazing to hear this story. By the way, great to have you back. For the record, Mayor Haynes, I voted for you. For the record, I know John.
We just needed another 155 John Jursics.
All right. For the record, I know Stan and John for some time, fellow Croatian brotherhood, you bet. And we lifted weights together out in an old gym on Glanford Avenue. Oh boy, I had hair, I was thin, everything. Anyway, obviously you're very excited about this venture.
I feel privileged to be involved.
Fantastic. Okay, let's go back a bit. How did you hear about? Can you talk about any success this product's already had, obviously, and is the operation already, and where already started, and where is the interest in Canada? Bunch of stuff for you, Fred.
Very good. So let's play in all of that space, John. Thank you. So right now it's up and running in New York. And we have 2 installations up and running. There's 3 more coming in. And this was field tested in New York. The technology is patented 3 years ago. It's in patents around the world. Everyone we've spoken to has said, that's interesting, tell me more. That's interesting, tell me more. There are some barriers that we're still working to overcome on policy. I'll come to those in a moment. But we're talking to hospitals, airports, large residential buildings, commercial groups, large office buildings that are faced with our 2030 targets of decarbonization on top of the 2050, which are even more stringent. And what we're able to do with this technology is take natural gas boilers that are currently installed and have lots of life on them and strap on this catalytic converter, if you like. It's a modular system that comes in. It needs a ceiling height of just under 7 foot. It needs 900 square foot, depending on the amount of carbon you're trying to secure. They're modular. They can be strapped on from 500 tons to 100,000 tons a year of capture, put that into a liquid form, and then use it in the local CO2 market. The people we're talking to go as far out as Moncton, Toronto, Edmonton, Calgary, and of course, groups across BC. What it does, it lets us give an alternate opportunity to electrification. And they've said that there's insufficient electrification capacity of distribution and current generation to fully replace all the current uses of natural gas. And this is actually a boon, because then they could, if we install these systems in buildings which are capable for it, and some buildings, in fact, cannot go to electrical, they have to stay on natural gas, particularly up in the north where they use cogen off of either diesel or natural gas to make electricities for hospitals. Then if they use this system, it will save those electrical supplies and increased supplies for things like electrical vehicles and buildings where they can go electrical. Once the capital costs are paid off, you actually get a revenue stream from the use of the CO2, particularly as the market for sustainable aviation fuel opens up. And Sergey, who's at the Air Canada, says the need just for Air Canada is 1 billion liters of sustainable aviation fuel. Right now, there's a policy debate about will that count for decarbonization targets if you used recycled CO2. We think it should, because right now they're using manufactured CO2. So if we replace the CO2 that's manufactured on a one-to-one basis, we're automatically cutting carbon emissions by 50%.
It's just amazing. And you think about countries in the East, and I talk about the Far East, China, Southeast Asia, India, who use a lot of coal, and they use a lot of coal-based energy even to get their electricity plants going. Creates a lot of pollution. And there's a big movement now to move natural gas into these countries,
Right.
replacing coal. And even just doing that, they estimate they would reduce the carbon footprint by up to 70% in those countries, even standing as it is. So you can imagine, by adding this process, the huge change it could make for our whole planet. Fred, I know that you've been a long time islander and you know your island politics very well. And I'm sure, like John and myself, you well remember the 80s when they first brought that gas line over to Vancouver Island, and they promoted like crazy. We should all go to natural gas in our homes. It was clean fuel. It was a great cost-effective way to heat, and everybody jumped on board. Civic officials were very proactive on this. Now they're saying, got to go on hydropower. Got to get off of liquefied natural gas, any kind of natural gas. Stop burning it for fuel. It's bad, bad, bad. And this technology, it could turn the equation around again. This could be another discussion.
Totally. So what we've seen with natural gas in its current form, Berman, it does put carbon into the atmosphere, and that is bad. But the energy itself is abundant. It's cheap and plentiful. It's well distributed. And just recently, talking about local politics, the Victoria Council agreed with Starlight, who are building $1,500 units of affordable housing in the Vic West. They wanted them to go electrical. And the developer said, well, if we go electrical, we will not be able to keep this affordable because it's much more expensive to go fully electrical in these large multi-unit housing systems. So this will give them the opportunity, because they've now been allowed to go to natural gas, 1,500 units of affordable rental accommodation, just like in New York. They're using the same system down there. We could strap this system on in a modular format, take out the carbon, and then they'll be using natural gas in a green fashion. Because the naughty bit with natural gas, and we can see from the fires burning across this country in Kelowna, out to the Maritimes, out through Quebec, everywhere, and down into the States, the massive effect of global warming. And carbon is a big part of that. So if we could take the carbon out and then use natural gas in a clean way, that does two things. It lets us use this abundant supply and preserve those electrical supplies for units of housing that are not suitable to go and use natural gas on a large scale. Remember, this is not for single family homes. Right now, there's a strong drive to electrify single-family homes and get them off gas or diesel. I completely agree. I'm a decarbonist myself in the house I live. However, for large residences, commercial units, university campuses, district heating systems, hospitals particularly, if the electrical power goes out on hospitals, people die. If electrical power goes out in airports, people die because you don't have the lights to land. So they will have to use natural gas in some form, even if it's just for cogen. But meanwhile, Chris O'Reilly of Hydro BC has said there's not enough electrical supply. So one of the toolkits that we can use is to decarbonize the large-scale use in urban environments of natural gas. Pending that we get the regulatory changes that we're talking to the federal and provincial level, we could create this new circular carbon economy where instead of bringing up CO2 from Oregon by train to distribute in BC, we have CO2 that's captured in Vancouver, captured in Victoria, and used in the local markets. It's a win-win-win on costing and stimulating the green economy.
Fred, let's talk about the elephant in the room, at least in Canada. It's no secret that Justin Trudeau has been lukewarm on natural gas. But at the same time, he's quite desperate to reach new standards as quickly as possible. This could be a huge win.
Right.
Is there a risk for you, the government, getting behind or not getting behind this technology? Is it now running on all cylinders to demonstrate the benefits that you've been explaining to us?
I believe it's running on several of the cylinders, but we need a few more. The cylinders it is running on is where we can capture the CO2. Like in Alberta, there's lots of opportunity to sequester CO2 into the ground, into old wells where it's mineralized. And the government is currently funding direct air capture on an industrial scale. So that piece, the federal government, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has got those cylinders firing well. What we've run into John, and how Robin introduced this. This is a revolutionary technology. It's only been out in the market for 4 or 5 months in a proven capacity. We could take you down tomorrow to New York to demonstrate it, and we're lining up some of those visits with our other stakeholders that we're talking to. But the idea of carbon capture in the urban environment is so new, it doesn't fit policies at the large scale right now. The big piece we need to sort out on policy is how to create a market for recycled CO2 and replace the manufactured CO2 that's currently being imported into Canada. 5 million tons. We would like to see an example where we could capture 1 million. If we deploy 100 of these units on the scales that we're talking about, that would give us 1 million tons of captured CO2. If we deploy 500, then we'll have 5 million tons of captured CO2, and we could completely replace the need for manufactured CO2. Wouldn't that be better for the climate? Wouldn't that be better for our local economy? And the other piece is these units use, it's not space age technology, it's standard boiler technology with temperature and pressure swings and using an absorbent that's safe to use in urban environments, unlike the amine systems that are out there if you want to get technical and look at that. So it's a very safe system, and it gives an amazing opportunity to completely change the conversation on the use of natural gas, and that in fact, capturing CO2 is a valuable economic commodity for Canada.
Well, needless to say, and you can really tell, Fred's very excited about this Fortis competition, which could be an excellent local test for this project. And Fortis is committed to finding ways to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, and the winner of this contest will be given the ability to launch a pilot project to prove out their solution. And they should reach some sort of a decision on who the winner will be by October. So we'll keep our ears to the ground on that. And we wish Fred Haynes and, of course, Stan Seaposts and all the gang behind this proposal the best of luck on this. And with that happy note, John, we're wrapping up another Rumble Room.
We sure are. Post-London Rumble Room, Robin. I'm sure glad that you're back. And thanking the many viewers for following our show on the variety of platforms that we always highlight at the end of our show, that being Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook news groups. We're on all these things. Follow us, subscribe, share. All of those things, do them again and tell your friends. Again, as always, so glad to have you back. I'm the Croatian sensation, the king of Saanich, the king of Tulip. What else can I be but John Jurisic?
And Johnny, as they say in Great Britain, jolly good, and rumble on.